Welcome to Life Beyond Abortion, the podcast where we delve into the untold stories and experiences surrounding abortion. Stories often missing from everyday conversations, media reports, and even other podcast interviews. I'm your host, Melissa Ohden, the founder and CEO of the Abortion Survivors Network. As the author of You Carried Me, A Daughter's Memoir, and Abortion Survivors Break Their Silence, I've had the privilege of hearing the most powerful stories from some of the most resilient and courageous individuals. These stories and these people have profoundly transformed my life, and I believe they have the power to transform yours as well. Together, we will amplify these voices, share the truths that they illuminate, and challenge our culture to recognize what life is truly like beyond abortion. Well, I am so pleased to have a new guest with me on this Life Beyond Abortion podcast, Rachel Shipers. Rachel is a Kansas City connection. I love being able to highlight what pro-life folks are doing in the Kansas City area. And obviously, we're going to learn today you are doing so much more than just the Kansas City area, but you are the vice president of Students for Life Action. So we're going to learn all about that today. But, I just want to hear about you as we talk about life beyond abortion, Rachel. Obviously it looks different person to person, whether someone has a personal story, a professional background. But I would love to know more about what shaped your beliefs and then led you to getting involved in the pro-life movement.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. I'm very excited to be here. So a little bit about me, I actually did not have any sort of pro-life background prior to becoming a member of Students for Life Action and Students for Life of America. I was a counselor and then ended up in a supervisory role. However, I just felt God calling me to the pro-life movement and had a heart for children due to the work that I did as a counselor. I've worked with rape survivors. I've worked with children who were a product of rape, as well as I spent a lot of time working with people in the foster care system. And I know that they matter and their life matters. And so whenever God started calling me to the pro-life movement, I told him I would do whatever it takes to join. And so that's how I'm here today.
I would love to hear more about that because this is so encouraging, I think, for people. Because I think, Rachel, sometimes people, and I think I talked about this with an interview guest recently, that, I think sometimes people look at somebody like me or someone who, was raised with a sibling who, maybe was born with significant health issues. And so folks kind of look at us and go, yeah, well, that makes sense why you've been so passionate and why you got involved. But
Yeah.
I think it's super encouraging to hear from someone who says, no, you know what? I am kind of new to being involved in the pro-life movement, but yet I've always had a passion for folks who are marginalized or, are deeply impacted by things that are happening in our communities and then policy. So I would love to hear, what has that process been like for you thus far? Like, what has surprised you? Maybe going from, a background as a counselor and then to being involved in the pro-life movement. What has surprised you? Maybe what has been like the biggest impact for you? What are you loving? Maybe what is like all those things? I would just love to hear about this.
Yeah, so those were a few questions. So let me start out with one of the things that I really feel like I'm supposed to be saying this today is one of the employees that I used to work with at my previous job was a product of the foster care system. And she was one of the most amazing people that I've ever gotten the privilege to work with. And she has helped hundreds, if not thousands, of children in the North Kansas City School District because of the impact that she does in their day-to-day lives. And so when I hear the left talk about, well, the foster care system is broken, and so these children should just be discarded, it disgusts me because there are people who are from the foster care system who are amazing human beings. And just because they are a product of an unfortunate circumstance does not then mean that they should be discarded through abortions. And so that was just something that I have continuously heard from the left as one of their top arguments to abortion, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, that somehow the solution to a systemic problem like a foster care system that is in need of reform, that somehow the appropriate response for that is the taking of a human life.
Exactly. It makes zero sense. And now that I'm in it, I mean, what has been so encouraging to me is see the pro-life generation be more and more outspoken about their fight for life.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? And I hope that you understand this about yourself already. You have been surrounded by people who, through their very lives, have been an encouragement to you, right? To get you to this place. And I think sometimes we overlook that in our lives, right? We can respect someone, we appreciate them. But, I want that to be an encouragement to folks who are catching this podcast that by their very life, by their very example, by being who they are, right? Difficult circumstances and all, that sets an example for people and can bring about huge changes in ways that I think people don't ever see coming. And now you, Rachel, are doing the same thing. I mean, how very, very cool that now, because people were who they were called to be, right? Difficulties and all. Now you are getting involved and you're finding and using your voice. And not only are you sharing their story and how it impacted you, but you are continuing kind of that whole life cycle. It's so amazingly cool.
Oh, well, I really appreciate it. And yes, I absolutely agree. When you are able to share your story about where you have come from, good, bad, and ugly, and the lessons that you've learned, it gives people the courage to do the same. And so when I felt God calling me to the pro life movement, I was terrified because I know that people are going to try and disregard my beliefs or try to shut me down. I am so
It's a
sorry.
pro life podcast. Hi, guys. I don't mind
I'm so
whatsoever.
sorry.
Guess what? This is real life. I love it. Guess what?
I'm so
We
sorry.
all work from. No, you don't need to apologize. This can stay in. They'll probably edit it, but I don't even. This is what I want people to see. This is what life looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's another thing that I love about working for the pro-life movement is you can do both. And a lot of times on the left, what the lies they keep telling women are you cannot do both. You cannot be a working mom and still do well at both. And you can. It may look different. It may be messy at times, like a 4-year-old coming in during a podcast, but you can do both. And I want that to be an encouragement for moms whenever they come and have an unexpected pregnancy or they don't feel like they're ready yet. You'll never be ready.
Man, we need to put that on a t-shirt, a bumper sticker, not just about motherhood, but like life in general. Right? You will never be ready for whatever it is you are afraid of.
Absolutely. And we've got to be able to do what's right even whenever it's hard.
Yeah, and it takes support, right? It takes a village. Again, I mean, I think this is part of what we're going to have the great opportunity to talk about today is how Students for Life and Students for Life Action are, such a huge piece of the puzzle, not just when it comes to advocacy, but, really championing support for women.
Absolutely.
And it's common sense, right? I mean, nothing probably makes me more righteously indignant than folks who would say, hey, listen, I'm going to give somebody $12,000 to go have a late term abortion. I mean, I've been talking about this story a lot. A woman named Evelyn, And the Washington Post had covered that story about a year ago, and I shared it before a congressional committee, and then it was included in the FDA confirmation hearing because that was Evelyn's story. She took two
That's her
rounds of
story.
abortion pills. Both times they failed. And the response to people in the abortion lobby, right, was to give her $12,000 for a late term abortion. And more trauma, right? Not support. And really, that was my
Right.
big question to Congress in that committee hearing last June was, couldn't you agree that we can do better than that? Think about the things we could do for women and children and families instead of sending $12,000 for an abortion.
And what's crazy to me is the lie that they tell that that's not traumatic for a woman, that it's empowering. It's not. It is messy. It is grotesque, and you will be scarred forever with that decision.
Well, and I know SFLA and SFLA Action have a pulse on everything, but Rachel, I don't know how much you followed that recent report that came out talking about 1 in 10 women
One
have
in 10.
having an
Over one in
adverse
10.
complication from the abortion pill. And that sample was almost 900,000.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
for folks who don't know about it, obviously I know it in and out and sideways, but what was your key takeaway about that?
That these women have been lied to. And the study prior to the one that just came out, what was it, either this week or late last week, it had such a small pool of samples versus this one with the 900,000 mark that ended up saying 1 in 10, over 10 women have adverse reactions to chemical abortion pills.
Yeah, I think that statistic was like 11.2%, which, you know, from a research, I'm a little bit of a nerd on these things, but that 11.2% actually echoes a finding in Canada related to a surgical abortion failure rate. So for me, when I start to see similar numbers, I always kind of go, oh, yeah, I'm not. First of all, I wasn't surprised by this report because we all know this. We know the stories of women who are ending up in the ER or they're going to a pregnancy center and it turns out, right, they're retaining tissue, they're hemorrhaging, all of these things.
Yes.
So that part wasn't surprising, but I think what was surprising to me was when I see folks like the New York Post carrying it. I just want to go, thank you, but now what are you
It'd
going to
be
do with this?
It'd be like if you went to the doctor's office and they were going to vaccinate your child, or you went to the doctor's office and you were going to get a vaccine yourself, and they said, there's a 1 in 10 shot that you're going to have adverse reactions to this. You might not want to do it, or at least second guess yourself before you make that decision.
Yeah, and your point is such an important one, right? That when we are having a surgery, right, we're signing off on that. They're telling us what we can expect, and we know that that's not what women have been told about
Right.
the abortion pill. And I've been talking to a lot of high schools recently, which I super love, but I've been very clear with those young people. It's not like Tylenol.
No.
That's what they're marketed. Oh, it's as safe as Tylenol. Clearly not. Clearly not.
Just an outright lie.
So, what does SFLA Action, do in the day to day? And what are you guys doing specifically related to chemical abortions? Maybe that's a great segue for us.
Right. Yeah. So, Students for Life Action, we have a Make America Pro Life Again initiative that focuses on state legislature. We organized 26 lobby days statewide or in 26 different states this year. And our four key legislation that we are introducing in states are chemical abortion pill bans, chemical abortion pill trafficking, and life at conception, as well as the Clean Water for All Life Act. Because as we know, there are no regulations on these at-home abortion pills, and so they're being flushed into our water system. So essentially, we are drinking other people's at-home abortions.
Yeah, I'm going to let that one sit for just a second in case folks listening in have never thought about that one before.
Yes.
I hope that they have. And I don't know if you ever saw this story, Rachel. It was probably, I don't know, a year ago at least. But I can remember a story out of Texas where at an apartment building, like they weren't getting good water pressure. And
Mm.
so, right, lo and behold, they're investigating it there. And what they actually find is fetal tissue plugging up the system there.
Correct. Yes. Our Vice President of Media and Communications, Christy Hamrick, just testified in Texas on our abortion pill trafficking ban that we introduced there. She actually testified last Friday on it. And when she talked about this specific thing, where we are drinking people's abortions and it interferes with our own hormones, there was laughter from the other side. It was insane.
Yeah, I mean, for folks to somehow deny that this is a reality, right? Time and time again, it's the denial of, adverse complications, even though there are research studies now that are clearly showing that. Folks are saying, right, believe the science. Well, what does the science say about the impact of these chemicals in our water? I mean, for folks to somehow think this doesn't affect them, that's just flat out denial.
Correct. Absolutely. And so we as Students for Life Action, ever since the DOT decision, we knew that it was going to be going to the states. And so we are leading the charge in getting states out of chemical abortion pill trafficking, out of selling chemical abortion pills online with a click of a button to protect women and, of course, preborn babies.
Where could folks go, Rachel? What would be the website where people could see more about the research on how abortion pills are affecting water?
Right. So we actually have a whole landing page with Students for Life. It's called This is Chemical Abortion. And that's where you can find all of our information regarding what is happening with the deadly chemical abortion pills that
So it
are
would be
plaguing
thisischemicalabortion.com.
it's either .com or I think it's .org.
Okay. So thisischemicalabortion.org to learn more
Yes,
about that.
absolutely.
Well, and I deeply appreciate how SFLA Action has really continued to lead the way on so many of these pieces of legislation. And, just like you talked about, though, Rachel, while also, really growing this pro life generation. And I know what that means, but for folks who maybe aren't familiar with SFLA or SFLA Action, what does that mean when we say, right, the pro life generation? Who is that?
Right. So Students for Life of America has 1,500 groups nationwide in all 50 states. And so we believe that teaching youth at the high school and college level about abortion, about what is happening in legislation, will lead for more minds changed and lives saved in the United States. And so we want to raise up a generation who is willing to fight and be courageous to make sure that we stand for life.
Yeah. And I mean, what I love about SFLA and SFLA Action is that really they're everywhere. So,
We are everywhere.
yeah, you really are. And not just like physically being there,
Mhm.
they are doing things. So, things like, when we were there before the Supreme Court recently, when they were taking up oral arguments on the Planned Parenthood versus Medina case. And, right, I was one of the people who spoke at that rally. The students are there overnight holding that space so the
Yeah,
abortion supporters aren't taking it up.
correct. Yeah, we are boots in the ground. And that's something that's very different with Students for Life of America. that we can deploy if for rapid response events anywhere at any time. And so we are currently having a fight in South Carolina for their Life at Conception Act, and we have been categorized as DC Swamp, in that we are students being shipped from Virginia to South Carolina. No, we have boots on the ground in South Carolina fighting for life. And so it doesn't matter where the fight is, we will be there.
Yeah, and that's sort of like a dismissive tactic, isn't it? Right? Of like, you guys are just a bunch of activists. And, I mean, the same thing happens for us at the Abortion Survivors Network. Folks, if I'm there, or one of our survivors is, testifying before a legislature, or, or there at an event, folks will sort of go, so are you from here? Well, I mean, sometimes we are and sometimes we aren't. But
Right.
yeah, it's sort of used as this, oh, well, you were just brought in to be an activist. Well, I mean, is anybody calling out the abortion industry and their lobby? Because that's what they're doing. Like, what on earth? I mean, we know there's a double standard for us, right? They have
Right.
their own rules and playbook, and supposedly we aren't supposed to be able to do the same.
Absolutely. And furthermore, not just with students, we have the Abortion Free Cities campaign. We have a Standing With You campaign that comes alongside pregnant mothers that offer free resources. And so those are two other ways that people can get involved with Students for Life that aren't just students. Furthermore, we have alumni that are serving in 72 different pro-life organizations upon their graduation. And so even though people start out at high school, we are the talent pipeline to shoot people off to continue to save babies after college.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the reasons why I have been someone who has mentored fellows from Students for Life for, probably the last 5 years or so, because when I got involved in the pro-life movement, a lot of people, spent time with me and shared information with me, but it was sort of like things that I had to learn on my own. And, I'm just so grateful for the opportunities that I'm given to share my experience and my knowledge with fellows from Students for Life, because I know that no matter how they use it personally or professionally, it's making a difference.
Correct. And that circles back to what I was talking about at the very beginning, Melissa. Us being able to share our stories gives other people the opportunity to do the same. It allows them to be courageous. It allows them inspiration to continue this fight for life.
That is so cool. I mean, I love that. We sort of went full circle. Good work, Rachel. We we covered all the bases. I love it. And that sort of leads me to the place where I'd love to hear from you, any key takeaways you would give to folks who are listening about, how they can get involved with SFLA action, or SFLA, and, how they can get in touch with you, and then kind of your final word, so 3 points, how they
Sure.
can get involved, and how to be in touch with you. And then I want to give you the final word, which is, what would be your encouragement to someone listening, whether, they're contemplating abortion, or there may be someone who is trying to figure out how to get involved?
Right. So the best place to start of getting involved with Students for Life is going to our webpage. You can also follow us on social media. I want to also just give a big shout out to Kristen Hopkins. She is such a gritty president and leader of Students for Life of America. And so she has really laid the groundwork of what it means to truly be an activist in the pro-life movement. So I definitely just want to give her a praise and credit where credit is due.
Amen.
Yeah. So as far as where they can get involved, they can go to our website for Students for Life of America. You can, if you're a student, you can request to start a group. You can also join and start a group for abortion-free cities. You can also partner and donate for our Standing With You campaign, which is what I discussed, that comes alongside affecting mothers as well as Students for Life Action. So we are the political sister of Students for Life of America. And so you are able to donate for Students for Life of America to assist us with boots on the ground activism in 50 states. Well, we really strategize and try to make sure that we are making efforts in priority states. And so would love for your support for Students for Life Action and Students for Life of America. As far as my final word for people who are listening is you can do hard things, and you can do what's right even whenever it's hard. So whether you're an expecting mother and you feel like you're alone or you're not able to do this, you're never alone. First of all, like Christ, our Lord and Savior, He is with you always. And you're never alone. You can always log on to our student standing with her webpage, and you can get free resources. There are so many more pregnancy resource centers than abortion facilities in the United States. You are never alone. Our local church that I'm a part of, we offer our Embrace Grace program that comes alongside pregnant women. You're never alone. Just reach out and ask somebody for help. That's the biggest thing that people are scared of doing, is asking for help and to do what's right even whenever it's hard. So that would be my biggest encouragement for mothers who are listening, who are feeling like they don't have any other option but abortion, because you have so many other options. And for those who want to do what's right, to join the pro-life movement, do it. There are so many more people that you may have never realized are pro-life and are joining the fight and are wanting to do what's right. But whenever you have the courage to stand on truth, they will follow suit and they will do the same.
Hear, hear. I couldn't say it any better than that. Rachel, again, I just want to thank you for joining me today. I want to thank you for, always being one of those people in the Kansas City community who, reaches out. I mean, to me, as someone who has been doing this work for so long, it always means so much to run into somebody in the community or, get a text message and figure out a time that we can both have coffee. So, I want to thank you for being who you are and for sharing with us today about Students for Life Action.
I appreciate you, Melissa. You've been an absolute inspiration to me as well. So thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Life Beyond Abortion is a podcast presentation of the Herzog Foundation. The views and opinions on the show are those of the host and her guest, and not necessarily those of the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more about Melissa's work at melissaohden.com or by following her on Instagram at melissaohden. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode of Life Beyond Abortion.